And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. It feels like the afternoon because of how early this game ended.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of like when it officially ended, but it was over like, I don't know, 8 minutes into the first quarter. Do you think?
Yeah, this game was very unserious after around the first quarter. I don't like these early endings, Anthony. I know for like the East Coast and others and for
Mm-hmm.
some international it's better. Just a personal kind of preference. I like the later games. I just not sure what to do with the rest of the day, kind of like the Sunday early games. I don't like those either. Like I like the evening nightcap, I enjoy those.
Well, you could watch like other basketball, you know.
That's true. Yes,
You have
that is
League
true.
Pass, so like you
Yeah,
can go to your local Applebee's and
that's
ask
fair.
them to
That's fair.
fire it up there.
That is true. That is
I
an
love to
option I
think
have.
you will not get this reference because you're young and you don't get many references anyway. But like in Cheers, right there, this dude Norm would walk into the bar and everybody in the bar would go like Norm. It's like and so like I just picture you walking into Applebee's like Raj, and then they're like, here you go, Raj, here you go, buddy. And then they set the TV to NBA TV for you.
No, so what happens is some of them are like do it in a lot better mood. Some people are like, "Oh, what channel?" And then some people are like, "What channel?" You know what I mean? So they know
Yeah,
that they know I'm coming for basketball though, which is
yeah.
the most important part.
I think some of those bartenders are just happy, especially at like Applebee's, right? They're
Hmm.
just happy that somebody's sitting at the bar, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's like, please sit down. We'll do anything. You've heard of we have the Dollaritas. Tell you what, you sit here, it's 50 centaritas. Like you can have it. Penny Ritas. Um today on the show, we are going to be talking about the Lakers taking it to the Detroit Pistons. It was not very competitive. The Pistons are a mess. It is, frankly, it's barely like you don't often want to go so far as to say that an NBA team doesn't have NBA talent. They clearly do, but I don't think it's necessarily a very serious NBA organization, right?
Sure.
I think some of these issues are really top down, where it starts with ownership and the way that they're going about business, or the amount of um, give a bleep up in the very at the very very top, and then it just kind of trickles down or doesn't trickle down from there. And you made the point a couple times over the course of this one. It's like this is a team that has lost 14, and like they don't care to break now
Right.
historic losing streak. Like that's not something they really care about.
Yeah, the urgency didn't, look right with the Pistons. And like my belief, Anthony, the whole league right now is laughing at the Washington Wizards, which like makes sense, right? It's a funny situation. Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are kind of doing they're kind of in their own world no matter what's going on. But just like for me as like a basketball fan looking at the basketball, it's tough when you like accept that type of losing into your organization. I think it's really tough to get out. Like once that seeps into your organization and you just become a wholly unserious franchise, even if it's for tanking, right? Even if it's for a greater goal in terms of like getting a better pick, I think it's tough to get that out. The Lakers went through that too, right? They had like 5 years of like really tough losing, even with all these high lottery picks. We were like going through coaches with Luke Walton, Byron
Hmm.
Scott, and all these guys. And it's just to me, like to get that out of your organization is tough. We saw it with Houston this year. Finally, they had to overpay two vets. They had to fire the whole coaching staff, get a whole new regime in just to flip that culture. And yeah, the Pistons, I'm not sure they're one of the 30 in the association right now. Like that does not look like a real basketball team. Tonight, you
That
know
was
what,
like a
Anthony
G
felt
League
like
game.
no, yeah. Tonight felt like a practice. Lakers don't practice much. Tonight was kind of like a practice, right? They got to get some reps in, got to go through some of their stuff, run it with like, when you practice, it's not like fully contact 5-on-5. Like they got some really nice, practice with some of their sets. But yeah, Detroit, that's tough. And I'm high on Cade Cunningham. I like the Thompson, the Thompson kid that they have. James Wiseman, I'm not
Lasar.
sure what's going sorry, yes, I'm not sure what's going on with Wiseman. I like, Jaden Ivey as well. Jalen Duren, their center. Like they have a lot of like nice talent. I just see no purpose or like they don't do anything that looks like they have any idea of what their identity is. And yeah, when you lose 15 games in a row, that's not normal. That's not something that teams just go out and do. So yeah, they're gonna have a they're gonna have a rough year for sure.
Yeah, they pretty desperately need a uh a culture shifter there, you know.
Mm,
I think they were hoping it would be Monty Williams, but yeah, I don't think he really has that cachet within the NBA to do that on his own. They were hoping that Cade Cunningham would be that, but he's been like in and out of availability, right? Like he basically missed all
hmm.
of last year. Um,
Right.
and you know, maybe now they're hoping that it would be Jaden Ivey, right? But like he doesn't really seem to be good enough, I think, to really change your culture. Asar Thompson is like a good defensive player, but isn't really like a star, right? He's, you
Hmm.
know, so you know, they need to find, you know, their kind of transcendent star, the guy who, you know, would set their culture. And until they find it, I think they're really going to be kind of just kind of drifting along. And you know, you make the comparison to the Lakers and everything that they were kind of going through before LeBron showed up. And
Right.
I honestly think it's a lot of the same stuff where a lot of those problems started at the very, very top, where Jim Buss was clearly in over his head, didn't have the best basketball instincts ever. And, you know, uh, famously or infamously made that promise that, like, if we are not in the playoffs or if we are not going deep
Right.
into the playoffs by 1 or 2 or 3 years from now, that, you know, I will step down or I will gladly get out of the way for Genie to step in. And you know, it's so funny. In doing this for now, as long as I have, you know, we always look for like the unique kind of take, right? You always look
Sure.
for you look for the thing that nobody else is saying, and you look for these unique angles so that you can appear smarter than you actually are. But a lot of times in professional sports, it's really as simple as like look no further than ownership. You know,
Mm,
when people ask, like when people wonder, how can the Bulls have been so mediocre? They have a market, you know, they have a large market that they exist in. They have cachet in NBA communities because of what they did in the 90s with Michael Jordan and all of that stuff. How can they have been this mediocre to bad for this long? And it's like, yeah, their ownership sucks. Like Jerry Reinsdorf is cheap and does not, I don't think, care to compete to actually win championships, doesn't do what it takes to win championships. At one point, he, you know, ran off Michael Jordan. And I think once you do that, like you let everybody know what you're actually about. So um I think here in this case with Detroit, as we saw it previously with Jim Buss, and as I worried for a little while with Jeannie, right, where her first inclination was to bring Magic Johnson into things. Fortunately, he stepped down and got out of the way, and it seems like Rob Pelinka. It not seems like he is objectively better at this than Magic was,
hmm.
and that has kind of righted the ship a little bit. And sometimes it does take a little time for a new ownership or, you know, a new owner to find their footing in this. But in this case with Tom Gore, like in Detroit, like that is a person who just does not seem to get it. Um, they might get lucky every so often, as they did when Chauncey Billups and that group won a championship. Though I would argue that happened because Karl Malone got hurt and Shaq and Kobe hated each other. But like, but still, you
Yeah.
look at the state of things now and the amount of apathy that you saw out there on the court, and I think it's very much reflective of the amount of apathy it is at the very top of the organization.
Yeah, for sure. I guess my only like pushback is sometimes like transcendent stars can overcome a lot of ownership, right? And a lot of it to me also, Anthony, is luck too, right? You get the number one pick in the right draft, and all of a sudden the owner wants to spend, right? Look at the Denver Nuggets, for example, right? They were an ownership
Mhm.
group that would never spend, would never go into the tax. And you get Nikola Jokic, and all of a sudden, look at that. They're spending into the tax. They're paying Aaron Gordon 4 years, $100 million. They're extending Jamal Murray, giving, paying KCP, all these things that they never did until the team started winning. So some of that I think is part of it too. Some teams like OKC, right? How about OKC, Anthony? How lucky, like you start off with Russ, KD, and Harden, and all of a sudden, like a couple, like 10 years later, you're able to get Shea, Chet, Jalen Williams. I mean, get to do it all over again. maybe they don't pay Jalen Williams this time and he's a Houston Rocket and he becomes an MVP. Who knows if that's the same route that they take? But I think that's part of it as well. Sometimes a transcendent star, and like with Cade, we were discussing this on playback. Like, is Cade behind schedule? Is he behind the 8 ball? I feel like Luca and like some of these stars have kind of just changed perceptions about how long it actually takes for a young player to get their footing, right? A guy like Cade who has to be the on-ball guard, like on-ball creator, and then you're playing him next to all these non-shooters. I think they're just making life really tough. Everyone wants lottery picks until it's time to like really build with them, right? I think the Warriors are finding this out as well. They just benched Moses Moody last night. Jonathan Kuminga can't close games. Like, it's very tough to develop, and sometimes that development takes like a really tough patch of games where you got to just kind of live with all the turnovers and rough shots and the losing. And that's tough for an organization to stomach, and I think that's where the Pistons are at. I just have hated their process through it in terms of their, the way they've gone about it in terms of their coaching, and they look like they have really no purpose and enthusiasm. And you talked about leadership through players. I just don't know who they're getting in any time soon, at least not this year, right? They're not going to go get a vet this year that's changing that. So but I agree. Like, ownership has a big part, but I also think like sometimes you just get lucky in the draft too. Like, if it's not Cade and they were able to get someone like Wemby, do we view them differently? Like, I think so.
Yeah. Although, like, an example in a different sport is Peyton Manning with the Colts, right? Where the Colts drafted him. Peyton Manning, for my money, is like top 2 or 3 quarterback of all
Okay.
time. And
What's his NBA comp? Like, if you had to compare him to like an NBA legend or player, like in terms of career.
I mean, LeBron-ish, right? Like,
Really?
he's in terms of like impact on an organization, I would probably say
Mm.
yeah. And grasp of the sport offensively, the guy's a genius.
Mm.
He's a genius when it comes to content making too, it turns out. I think he's
I
already
see him on
made
the pizza commercials.
his production company is already worth like $500 million or something insane. But
Oh wow.
but so the Colts draft him, and were kind of a laughing stock before they drafted him. Then they drafted him, and he immediately lifts them to heights that I don't think they necessarily deserved. The 1 year that he missed with injuries and stuff like that, I think they went 1-15 that season. Had the ability to then draft Andrew Luck, who was, a Wemby-ish type prospect in football for a little while, like in terms of unique skill set and just an overall great player. But Peyton Manning departs. Andrew Luck retires early because of the way his body was kind of breaking down. And once they don't have those kinds of presences in their organization by way of drafting, franchise altering type quarterbacks, immediately they become a laughing stock again. Now they have a pretty good quarterback now, Richardson, who is, going to be pretty good here for a little while. He got hurt this season, but you see their owner and he's a freaking lunatic. He's a crazy person. And
Mm.
when you have that kind of a malignant presence in your organization as Irsay is, I would argue they underperformed with Peyton Manning because he covered up a lot of shortcomings in that organization. And they also underperformed with Andrew Luck, given what he was as in terms of being a prospect when he came into the league. And when you have just losers at the top, your organization is going to do a lot of losing. And I think that's kind of what's going on here with the Pistons. And I do sincerely hope that they figure it out, right? Like, Detroit's a great basketball town. Like the culture of basketball in that city is super underrated. The way that they love the Bad Boy Pistons, the way that they loved those Chauncey Billups Pistons, like that is a city that is aching to care about basketball again. And I really do hope that like one thing that I'm kind of keeping an eye out for, a smart organization right now, what they would probably do. Chris Paul has this nerve thing that eventually I think is going to necessitate that the Warriors find somebody who can be more impactful than he will regularly be. If I were the Pistons, I would go try to bring Chris Paul into the organization. I would just say, like, I would try to bring him in. I would hope that some of his leadership, not all of it, because I think he's an asshole, but some of his leadership kind of rubs off on Cade Cunningham, and that like you get somebody in there who kind of through their cachet in the NBA, through their presence in NBA, circles, gets in there and like, he's already worked well with Monty before. It's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that like I if I were the Pistons, I would be working really hard, even if he's physically broken at this point, to bring him in and shift your culture, because what they're doing right now, they're a joke, man. Like that game tonight was just, you watch any possession that they're going through,
Yeah.
and they're walking into sets, they're walking into screens. They aren't like there was never any attempt to get to, options B, C, or D in their offense. If option A wasn't there, they just kind of broke down into isolation. Or you had freaking Isaac Stewart shooting a bunch of three. He shot 7 3-pointers in this one. I know he's kind of like a stretch five or whatever like that, but Isaac Stewart, if he's shooting 7 3-pointers for you, you're going to win 12 games, period. Like, I'm willing to
Yeah.
call that a rule in the NBA. And look, like in the Lakers case, they really needed this game.
Yep.
They needed a game like this to just go out there and beat the crap out of somebody. Get back to seeing the ball go through the basket. You had D'Angelo Russell go 5 of 7 from 3-point range. Taurean Prince continues his recent decent shooting where he goes 3 of 4 from 3-point range. Christian Wood still managed to go 0 for 4. But like, the Lakers needed these kinds of vibes going into tomorrow, or tonight, by the time you guys are listening to this on the pod feed. That is a really important kind of barometer game. The Lakers still, need to show that they can compete against the NBA's elite. The Thunder are certainly playing like the NBA's elite right now. And yeah, they're going to be coming off of a back-to-back. And now this is going to be a travel back-to-back, which is different from the previous ones. But I hope that the Lakers can kind of take some of those positive habits that you get from beating up a team like this and carry them into a team that, like, it is kind of a bar setter.
It really is. And yeah, like tonight we joked and I even said, I'm not sure Detroit's a real team and all that, but it is good to beat up on one of these teams. That's what good teams do, right? They go out and they take care of business. And at least tonight was one of the first, I think this one and maybe the Memphis game was one where it was never close. The Lakers were able to get to whatever they wanted. D'Angelo Russell came out and hit, I believe, his first 6 or 7 shots. Again, tonight, like these are teams that D'Lo is going to kill against, right? There's just no ball pressure at all, and there's no rim.
That was part of the
There's
thing
no,
with Cade, man. Like, I know you're higher on Cade or whatever,
yeah,
but the lack of you are getting killed at your
yeah,
position by D'Angelo Russell. And at no point was there ever like all right, this has got to stop.
yeah.
Like, at no point did it ever look like he was like, this isn't cool, man. He's killing you.
No. And Cade's better than that. Like that, Cade's a
Yeah.
real talent. Like, do you remember over the summer, Anthony, the stories? Who's killing in Team USA? Right? It
Mhm.
was Cade Cunningham was like really showing out, and there were even talks about, hey, maybe Cade can make the big squad one day, or like
Mhm.
or maybe he should have been on this FIBA team, or even after we lost, there were some people saying, oh, maybe if Cade was on the team, maybe we would be able to win.
Yeah.
Like maybe
Not
they
based
would
on
have
what
some.
I'm watching now, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like, there's part of that, and he's better than that. But no, for the Lakers, I think it was great. I think they needed this. I think we called it a palate cleanser. Kind of after you lose by 44, just go out and like beat the brakes off of a team. LeBron didn't really have to give much effort. Anthony Davis, I thought his blocks, Anthony, weren't just blocks. He could have caught all of those. Like, I'm not sure what
Yeah.
Detroit was thinking. A lot of those were just like flails at the basket, and he like just tapped them away, or he hit a few into the crowd. And he had a dominant performance as well. D'Lo went off. Just a nice one that you hope can like build on till tomorrow when they play OKC. And I don't think I don't take the rest advantage anymore. Like, it has not mattered either way. We've got games where we blown out teams, and we still get blown out on the second night of a back-to-back. Sacramento, I think we were kind of unhealthy, and then AD was a little shaken up, I believe, in the Kings game, and then obviously Philly, we got destroyed. It was Philly. Philly wasn't a back-to-back. I forgot the other one where we got blown out on the second night of a back-to-back.
Kings?
Which one? There was Kings, and I think there was one more as well where we lost the second night of a back-to-back. But
Houston?
Yes, Houston. Right. Yeah. In Houston, that was also without AD, and that was without Jackson Hayes, who also was hurt. But definitely tomorrow against OKC is gonna be tough. But getting a 3-1 road trip, Anthony, imagine that. Like, coming out of this road trip
Let's
3
get
and
it.
1. Yeah, that would be
Let's get it first
that.
before I start like thinking about like, man, that
No,
sure would
but
be
like
nice.
just in terms of like how we felt after the 44-point loss and kind of all the conversations around it, LeBron's quotes after the game, right? That everyone went into of what needs to change a lot and all that he was kind of describing. Just come out with a 3-on road trip would be great, but they're gonna have to be ready for it. OKC is tough, legit. Chet gives us some really unique problems that, just to be nice, Detroit doesn't. Like, their big men don't shoot, and Chet
Yeah.
isn't like one of the most like special big men in the league right now. And that's my like biggest matchup to look at tomorrow. AD versus Chet Holmgren, who AD should put in the damn basket tomorrow. Like, he should put him in the basket tomorrow. This should be a post up AD tomorrow, like early and often, get him in a rhythm, get him going. And I think that's the key to start for tomorrow.
All right, let's really quickly go through some of these lines because they are impressive, right? So you have D'Angelo Russell, who really led the way here. Game high plus minus of 31, plus 31 on this one. He scored 35 points on 13 of 17 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3-point range. Got to the free throw line, 4 of 5 there, 4 boards, 9 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, only 3 turnovers. You could probably say statistically, it's hard to really lump it in and compare it to any other real games because the
Right.
Pistons are so unserious that like it's hard to really associate any stakes to this. But statistically speaking, I think this is probably his best game as a Laker.
Sure.
And also in terms of like just general wherewithal and control over the offense, I thought it was just a very impressive game there from D'Angelo Russell. You had LeBron James super quietly go for 25 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 9 of 19 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3-point range, 5 of 5 from the line. He finishes a plus 26. And then AD, like you talked about, 28 points, 9 of 15 from the field, 10 of 13 from the free throw line, which it was really nice seeing him get to the free throw line to that extent, right? I have some numbers that I'll throw at you here in a second about, the Lakers going into this game, at least. 16 boards, 4 of them offensive, 4 assists, a steal and 3 blocks, plus 29 on the night. Like that is like, and again, I'm just going to stop offering up here for everybody listening right now. Here's a big caveat. The Pistons suck. Like, there's your big caveat, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, I'm this, like, this, everything from this game can just kind of like pour out from under there. It covers
Sure.
it is an all-encompassing caveat here to this one. The Pistons are terrible. They're barely an NBA team. But I do think though that like, while there isn't much that I'm going to carry forward from this one, I do think like some of these numbers would indicate the kinds of things that like you need to get back to, right? So I had Dan Wojcicki on the show today, and then in yesterday's lowdown, I brought this up that the Lakers are shooting only the 10th most free throws in the league, which is still like above average, but it's not the kind of dominance from in that stat that I think really helped drive their success after the Russell Westbrook trade last year. They are shooting the fewest 3-pointers in the league, and they are hitting the second fewest percentage of those threes in the NBA. They're turning the ball over more, the 8th most in the NBA. This is all coming into tonight, so some of this might be kind of off. And they are grabbing, I believe, like the 28th fewest offensive rebounds per game,
Yeah.
while turning the ball over. I think I mentioned that they're turning the ball over 15 times a game. All of those numbers, right, would kind of paint a picture of a really of an offensively inept team
Yep.
so far this season. They have not been good offensively, and that puts a lot of pressure on your defense. It puts a lot of pressure on you to be successful in transition, which again requires you to be really good defensively. And I think, when we have our frustrations about this team, like that, though, that profile is why, like that combination of those numbers is why. And that's why, coming off of this one again against like, brilliant wins, an ironic name for this, on this comment, they beat the literal weakest team in the entire league. Keep it real. It counts as a win, but who cares? The Sixers dog walked us. Trade Russell, please. Look, I agree for the most part there, but when you're looking at like profile of performances that would make the Lakers more successful more consistently,
Yeah.
AD getting to the free throw line 10 plus times would be huge, or 8 or 9 times a game would be huge, right? You had, D'Angelo Russell go 5 of 7 from 3-point range. You had Torian Prince go 3 of 4 from 3-point range. The Lakers kind of struggled. Well, they hit 35% of their threes on the night. A lot of those coming from Russell and James and Prince.
Yeah.
Everybody else had kind of a quiet night. But like when we look at the kinds of things that the Lakers need to do to turn things around offensively, you saw some of that tonight. And again, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy to replicate against better teams, because it isn't, right? But like that's where it's going to have to start if they are going to turn it around. So, Raj, like, how would you go about turning it around?
Yeah.
Like, how would you go about making sure that some of those things start eking or inching in the right direction?
Yeah, I think you made the point about like you're 10th in free throws and then you're also last in 3-pointers made, right? Like that's a really awful combination. That means you're not
Mm.
getting to the basket and you're not hitting from outside. You're losing the math game every night. And obviously we're trying to be, and I said this earlier, I think our new 5-out offense was a real bet on Austin, Gabe, D'Lo, just and Torian being absolute snipers and lasers from the outside. They just haven't been that yet. But to me, the biggest thing, like for this team especially, is just having Anthony Davis involved. Like I think our ceiling in terms of what this team is when AD scores like 17 points versus when he's like in the 28 to 30, this team's just a different basketball team. I was
Yeah.
rewatching the first quarter a little bit tonight, and there were plays where like AD would get the rebound. And again, to your caveat, it's Detroit, so I totally understand that. But these are things to me that are independent of who the opponent is, right? Like it really doesn't matter. Like whether it's Jalen Duren tonight, whether it's Chet Holmgren tomorrow, whether it's whoever we play after that, like I think AD's aggression can stay at this like stable level. And there were plays where like he got the rebound and pushed the basketball, got into the paint, got fouled, got to the rim, got to his little hook shots. They're like it felt like we were just a little bit more. We were trying to get AD the basketball in the post. And like I know post ups isn't some efficient shot, but for AD, I think that's Anthony where he stays involved. That's where he gets to feel the basketball, where he gets to sometimes be a playmaker. The first score of the game tonight was AD post up on the right side. D'Angelo Russell cuts and gets a layup. That's our first basket of the night. And that's like through
Yeah.
AD getting the ball, getting a post touch. And I think that's something that we can really incorporate more than him just being a screener for 70-80% of the possessions. And I think that's leading to a lot of the low percentage. It's why we don't make a lot of threes, because a lot of our threes are off the dribble. They're not coming from dribble penetration. They're coming out from D'Lo or even Torian or Austin taking off the dribble threes. So I think just changing some of that shot profile, Anthony, to more shots where LeBron's kind of creating shots, driving to the paint and getting more, just doing a little bit more conventional offense. Like I think our offense has become so much trying to play this 5-out style that we've kind of lost some of the like energy and ball movement and like threes off the catch. Torian hit 3 threes tonight. I'm hoping that's like a continuation. He hit, I believe, 2 or 3 in Philly as well, right? So hopefully that's a good sign going forward that he's starting to get hot. Cam Reddish came back tonight. I thought he played well, but to me, our offense kind of lives and kind of breathes off of AD and LeBron, of course, like rim pressure and just the consistent attack of the basket, and that'll open up the jump shots. And I feel like we're trying to do it the other way around. We're trying to have D'Lo and Austin and Torian kind of open up the paint, and that just hasn't worked. So that's where I would go. I would try to establish Anthony Davis early and often, and just have him in a basketball rhythm. Too many times, too many games, people were upset about the no scoring in the second half against Philly, and Anthony. A lot of that is because he hasn't touched the ball in a quarter, and a lot,
Yeah.
and that's on him as well for sure. He accepts responsibility for that. He should accept responsibility for that. But I think that's also part of like the team needs to have some kind of conversation. Like, no, he's getting single coverage on there. Joel Embiid got 2 fouls. They put Nick Batum on Anthony Davis, and we ran 80 handoffs for D'Lo and LeBron to come off shooting. Like, go get him the basketball and draw 2 off of that. And I think that's something
Yeah.
we can do better.
Yeah. I had Woiki on the show before the game today and
Mm-hmm.
read him those stats, right? And asked him about the 5-out approach. We are now, the Lakers just played their 19th game of the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually coaches and organizations will basically break up the season into quadrants, right? You have your first quarter, your second quarter, third quarter, fourth. And we are a game away from the first quarter of the season being behind them. And I asked him if maybe just maybe with as much of the season behind them, if they would start to implement more of, at least, like, I'm not even saying run the triangle. I'm not saying run like some smash mouth, offense that,
You want the Princeton offense, Anthony?
yeah, like nothing. I'm not even saying like go out and run something that like completely flies in the face of the analytics, right? Because the whole point of the 5-out thing was to get the math in your favor, right? The hope there was to have D'Lo and Austin and Gabe and Prince and even Rui to a lesser extent step out there and knock down enough shots to like reset the scales a little bit more,
Yeah.
right? Bring that back to a manageable spot. Problem is those guys didn't hit their shots. And those shots that those guys were taking away from like AD post touches, right? Which are very efficient in their own ways when he's got it going.
Yeah.
And I kind of asked him as they reached that quarter mark of the season, is that something that they would scale back? And my concern here with Darvin, I think he's an okay coach, but my concern with Darvin is always that like he is kind of incapable of nuance, right? Like like if he's gonna go small, he's gonna go super duper small, and if he's gonna go big, he's gonna go super duper big. He's
Yeah.
gonna play
Two
wings. He's
extremes.
gonna play 4 wings, and it's just like he's just like and when he gets the idea of like the 5-out offense, he's like, we are running nothing else. Talent be damned on it, And I kind of hope that over the course of the season, he starts to work some nuance into their shot diet and their set diet, right? And for all of the if you're running 5-out stuff, 80% of the time to this point, 20 or so games into the season, maybe, the next 20 or so, you scale it back to like 70% or 65% or 0%. Who said that? But like, I just like start to diversify the ways that they're doing this, because yeah, to the point that you just made, sometimes like Dan also made the point when it comes to the rotations, right? Really often here you're seeing them try to keep certain combinations on the court, and I think there's something to that, and stagger certain guys or try to
Mm-hmm.
avoid certain combinations or whatever. That's part of the point of these early season games, is to figure out some of those combinations. But then also you kind of sort of need to like focus on getting your best players out there on the court as often as possible so they can get those reps of playing together more. Yeah, I'd have to go through their stats here. I'd have to go through their lineup data. But if you had to guess, how often we have seen the combination of, the playoff lineup basically from
Yeah.
last year, right? Those 4 guys. I'm gonna go 4-player lineups. Yeah. So I'm trying to find LeBron, Reeves, Davis, and Rui. How far down the
Mm.
list do you think I would have to go to find
Yeah.
that?
Well, it would have to
You
be
know?
pretty far because I'm guessing Rui was out, right? He had the concussion and been
Mhm.
out for a little bit. So I don't think they've touched like 100 minutes so far with each other. I think the
Not
also
even.
issue, Anthony, is we're trying to play both Christian Wood and Jackson Hayes, right? I think like both of those guys in the rotation also kind of messes up your Rui and Rui, LeBron, AD minutes with Rui off the bench as well. So that's also one part of it too. I think
Mhm.
like both those guys being the rotation. Both those guys, by the way, Anthony, are not 5-out centers.
Yeah.
I don't think Christian Wood can shoot. I'm I just I just right.
No.
I've watched and rewatched. No, but like his numbers say that he was right. Like if you go
Yeah.
look at his Dallas numbers last year, he's a respectable 3-point shooter. But when I watch it, it seems like he's more of a I have it going now. Let me take a three, and like I'm in an offensive rhythm. He's not a guy that you just park there and tell him stand there and wait for threes to come to him. Anthony Jackson Hayes took a three in the Philly game. Like I just I like those guys standing on the outside to me, waiting for the basketball, just gunks up your spacing. Austin and D'Lo just don't draw two enough, and they don't get to the rim. They don't pressure the basket. They don't attack the rim enough to me to run that. I just like the word that you said, a little bit more variety, like a little bit
Yeah.
more variety in your offense, and I think it can help a team that's so shorthanded. And look, when Gabe comes back, hopefully sometime this season. If Gabe comes back and you want to go, like you want to continue to experiment, and maybe he's one of the missing links in terms of a guy that can get hot from three and really compromise the defense in a 5-out system, like, yeah, go back to that. I just think right now, the personnel that you have, we're playing all these wings that are also not snipers, right? Cam Reddish, Max Christie, guys who have to play, aren't really 3-point bombers either. So I'd like to go back to a little bit more conventional offense and pick up some wins doing that. But I don't see a change coming. Like you said, I don't think Darvin is switching anything up while the team continues to win. I think they've won like 7 of 10 now or something. So the team is winning ball games. I just don't see a change coming of that magnitude yet.
Are they winning enough though? Like to say like everything is great. Like it'd be one thing
Oh
if they
no,
were,
but
like I went through the list, Raj. I don't see any of those minutes. Like, I don't.
no, they've had to have played like a minute. They've had to. There's
I'm
no way they haven't.
looking, and I see LeBron James, AD, D'Angelo Russell, and Rui Hachimura. That has happened, but I'm trying to find LeBron, AD, Hachimura, and Reeves, and it is not on here. Like somebody else help me out here. Maybe I'm dyslexic,
Oh,
but
you're right. Actually, yeah, I think they haven't played enough minutes to qualify as a lineup. I guess. So yeah, I think you're right. I've looked it up. They
yeah,
show NBA.com does not show it as a lineup that has existed this season, which isn't
like
great.
I know Rui has missed some time, and that's made it a little more complicated. And you've moved Austin and Rui to the bench, which again makes it a little bit more complicated. But that's kind of
Mhm.
the crux of Wojcic's point, right? Is it like you're getting a little too cute if your 4 best players have not played enough to register as a lineup on NBA.com? Like that's like that feels like a bit of a failure on the coaching staff's part, just in my opinion. Like if I tweet that out right now, if I say basically, all right, that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tweet out that Rui, Reeves, AD, and LeBron have not played enough to register as a lineup. At the end of the show, I'll read some of the responses to it, and we'll have a little bit of
Oh
fun
man.
there, a little fun there. But yeah, I think that's one of the concerns, right? And that's where it kind of goes back to the point that you're making about like you're overthinking things with AD too, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
No, for sure. And also, like, if you look around the league, Anthony, like the teams that run this 5-out very successful, their bigs are like pretty special passers and they can shoot, right? Like those are two things that like I feel like you need to have, and you need a movement shooter. Like those three are pretty much the combination. You look at Miami with Bam and Duncan Robinson. You look at Sacramento with Sabonis and Kevin Herter. You look at the Warriors with Draymond and obviously maybe the best movement shooter ever. Draymond's not a shooter, but Steph and Clay create so much gravity in terms of how they shoot. It just allows you to play that style. I'm not 100% certain yet. Maybe this is a nicer way to put it. I'm not 100% certain yet. This is the like offensive system to best maximize this team. I just don't. I'm not sure D'Lo and Austin are movement shooters enough to do that, and Torian isn't either. Torian's more of a standstill guy as well. So we'll see. But yeah, like that's our biggest gap, right? I think we're like 12th in defense. So like the defense, I think has been fine. I'm not even really even concerned. The offensive rebound concerns me. Teams are like flying at the offensive glass against us, and I think that's more of a like team LeBron like engagement issue more than just a team wide concept issue. I think we're like almost last in loose balls as well, like in terms of hustle stats. So we're pretty terrible there as well. But the offense to me is our biggest gap from becoming a okay to good team, which we are right now. Which that's kind of what okay to good teams do, right? They beat up on bad teams and they lose against the good ones. That's kind of like how you stay in that middle of the pack. But to like get to that next level, I think our offense has a lot of like margin for improvement. And it starts to me with AD. Getting him involved, I think just opens everything else up. I don't think it's the other way around. I don't think Austin and D'Lo shooting threes, because I think that was the idea of this team, Anthony. It was Torian, Gabe, and Austin were going to open things up for AD inside. That's not happening. Those guys just
Yeah.
aren't shooting well enough for teams to allocate resources out to them and leave AD inside or even leave LeBron inside. So
I
I think
also don't even know if there's like if they can shoot well enough that teams would do that, because like
sure.
in order for that to happen, you have to be like prime Clay / Steph out there, right?
Right.
You have to hit at such astronomical rates on such volume that teams are like, okay, mathematically, we have to get out there and guard those guys because they are punishing us over the course of a
Hmm.
game. But like if Torian Prince, even if he hits 40% of his threes, but he's only taking 3 or 4 a game,
Right.
that's just a few points compared to what LeBron or AD would do to you inside, right? Same goes for Russell, same goes for Reeves. And again, I think that's part of why he went to the 5-out system, so that those guys would shoot at enough volume to have that matter.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they haven't shot on enough volume, let alone hit on enough volume to make that to where teams are adjusting. But I also don't necessarily know that, like, as currently constituted, the Lakers have anybody on their roster who can shoot enough and make enough to force teams to not do that. So basically, you're still, you're left with, and I think this is why shooters who come to LA can kind of be extra frustrating, right? A, they aren't hitting for whatever reason, compared to how they hit everywhere else. And B, if they aren't hitting, typically shooters can't do other things on the court. Otherwise, they're max players. And, the Torian Princes of the world, when he isn't hitting, what else is he doing for you out there? And that's the issue that the Lakers keep running into.
Right. And the answer with Torian is pretty much nothing else, right? Like that's the biggest issue to me with Torian, is that he like doesn't guard, and we're putting him on like, I don't know why Ham has this idea that Torian's a like on ball defender, and I just disagree respectfully. Like I don't think Torian is that
Do you
level
think
of
it's because
guard.
he's guarding Austin and D'Lo
Oh
in
no.
practice, and like
It's
they
like,
can't go by him because they don't have the foot speed, and they're like, holy shit, this guy's incredible.
oh man, no. Um that's not it.
That's one of my favorite things to do here, is like plant those thoughts in your head. You're like, oh my God.
That can't be it. No. But yeah, like I totally disagree with that though, that approach at least. And we still started Torian over well, Max started over Cam, I guess. But yeah, that's the problem with like chasing shooters, is what do they like, those are the players to me, Anthony, that get removed and when the playoffs start. Like those are the first guys to go in terms of their impact on a game. If you can only shoot, you're gonna be removed pretty quickly. But I do think like D'Lo and Austin just kind of also even involved within this conversation have to be better and more consistent night to night. Like we were joking on playback, but D'Lo can't just cook against the Detroit Pistons, and then tomorrow have like a 2 for 12 game like that. Then that really negates your performance tonight, in my opinion. Like Detroit's the Oklahoma City is a tough, rugged team. They're gonna throw big, rangy defenders at him. But I think D'Lo's skilled enough to me where he can maneuver and he can still manipulate defenses, especially next to LeBron and especially next to AD. Those guys just sometimes have to play better as well, even within this 5-out system. I think we make things a little difficult for them. But yeah, like I think the shooting will improve. It's just I'm not sure this system where we're running it kind of is best useful for them to get going. But I don't think anything's changing. Like you said, I think Darvin's going to stick with this until some massive losing streak occurs. But the team is just winning at a pace just enough to where it's good enough, and we're not healthy, right? That excuse can still be used. Jared Vanderbilt, obviously, we're waiting. Rui's supposed to come back soon, and Gabe is on the team still. So, like, hopefully that guy's back as well.
I like
That's
how
mean.
There was like
that was mean.
if there was like a season review, right, of Gabe Vincent's season, it'd be like Gabe Vincent on the roster. Things he did well, collect checks. Things he did not so well, walk upright.
That's be a massive like aggression to the mean, right? I mean, he's 1 for 14 from 3, Anthony. So like he's gonna hit his next like 8, right? That's how that works. 8, well, that would put him like 9 for 22. Yeah, like if he has to hit like his next 8, that shit like once he comes back. That's what I'm expecting, at least.
I hope you don't gamble much. I
don't. No.
Because
Not at all.
That's not how positive regression happens. It doesn't all happen immediately. Like,
no,
it takes a long
that would be great.
All right, we're about to wrap up here, and I did get a comment that I was looking for. Here is an image sent in response to my tweet about the four-man
Okay.
lineup that hasn't registered to this point. There it is. Darvin Ham holding up a clipboard saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. Is that so? What he's holding up there, because that's not the banana yellow that the Lakers currently wear. Is
No,
that a
that's the
Byron Scott? Is that a
no, no,
Byron
no,
Scott edit, or
no.
is
That's
that
his.
like an actual?
That's an actual clipboard. Yeah, that's an actual clipboard. I think that was like a TNT game where that showed up.
Because
What
that
if someone
happened
like
with.
actually drew a play on it? Like I would actually go and draw a basketball play on it. I think that'd be cool.
Do you think if somebody did that, he'd be like, "Whoa, shit, that's a good play." the The play is just like Anthony Davis walks down to the block and he's like, "Absolutely not. That is no way."
I think the real one said like no rebounds or something. Like it said something on there like no
Yeah.
rebounds or
Well, the Lakers
play
have
hard.
have actually listened. They
Yeah.
have not gotten any
Oh
rebounds.
wait, no. Or it was like play harder. It was some. It was not basketball related. Like it was some quote on there. I forgot what it was.
He's like, "Contain a Lamborghini." Like, all right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge. Again, a huge game tomorrow night or tonight by the time you guys are listening to this. I will. All right, Chris made some points here. I'm going to go ahead and flash these comments here. AD looked dominant. Agreed. AD was a beast. Agreed. Lakers look great today. Agreed. We just would like them to look great also tomorrow. And I would like to see Anthony Davis also look great tomorrow, even if it's on the second night of a back-to-back. And even though the Lakers are technically traveling tonight, he didn't play in the fourth quarter, really, I don't think. And this does set up well for him to play pretty well against that team, and we'll see what that kind of looks like. But yeah, we'll go ahead and end this thing here. And okay, so
I found the real
Yeah.
whiteboard here. It says contest without fouling. So
Okay.
that's the real Laker board right there. That is the real Laker yellow that
Do
they
you think
use
the
on the
Lakers were on offense in that possession? Like he was like they were getting ready to come out of the timeout. They're going to be on offense, and that's the play he drew up as contest without fouling.
LeBron looks over like, where am I supposed to stand at? Oh, never mind. There's nothing.
Like you're standing at the C there.
This is a good win, man.
I just can't help myself. I just don't think he's a very good coach. All right, I didn't say that. Have a great evening, everybody. Again, and I guess some news that broke over the course of the taping on All Access Lakers. So occasionally on non-game nights, Aaron will host more of like a podcast setting. I was on there yesterday talking with him and Trudell, and that is audio that is not really being used beyond playback. So what we're, I think, going to start doing is grabbing some of that audio. I'm going to grab an intro and outro, and I'll retool that here for the feed, and we'll see what I guess I could technically put it up on YouTube. I'll talk to him about that too. But yeah, that is at least the plan here. So that would be another injection of content onto the feed that can be very good content. Like he gets great guests on that show pretty regularly, and has some fun conversations there, breaks news there occasionally as well. So I am excited to start doing that. So again, if you want to participate in those conversations live, you can do so at playback.tv/all access Lakers. It's where Raj and Shub and Rome and I, and sometimes Aaron, watch those games live together and have our fun and break that down live all there together. And then now it's where you can get another live version of this podcast before it airs on your pod feed. But if you just subscribe on wherever it is that you get your podcasts, that will start showing up there as well. But Raj, thank you very much for hopping on here. It's always a pleasure to plant those terrible ideas in the back of your mind. and see your reaction to them. Enjoy rewatching this one, and we'll see how tomorrow goes.
No trade talks. Hell yeah.